If you own a business that requires you to talk to a lot of prospects, then you will know how much time it can take up for you and your team to go through all those calls, all the hours spending on the phone while you could have spent growing your business. And so in this video, I'm going to show you step by step on how you can build an AI voice agent to help you do three things. First, it can pick up the phone from prospect and answer any questions that they might have about your business. Second, it can help book in appointments if the prospect is interested. And third, it can collect necessary information from the prospect in the call and store that into your CRM. Interested? Well, let's take a look.
Hi, this is Jarvis. I'm Nathan's AI assistant. Who am I speaking with?
Hey, this is Tony.
Hi, Tony. How can I help you today? Do you want to learn more about our AI agents?
Sure.
Great. We specialize in voice agents and chatbots. Our voice agents can handle customer calls for tasks like answering questions or booking appointments, while our chatbots can perform similar tasks via text and integrate with your website or messaging platforms like WhatsApp or Instagram. Is there a specific operation you're looking to automate with AI agents?
Yeah, I own an e-commerce store and I would like to build a chatbot to automate my customer service since I get a lot of inquiries every day.
That sounds like a fantastic idea, Tony. Automating customer service can save you a lot of time and improve response times for your customers. What budget do you have in mind for this project?
Around $3,000.
Got it. Would you like to book a call with Nathan to discuss the details further?
Sure, let's do it.
Awesome. Can I get your company name and email address, please?
Yeah, it's Tony's store and my email address is hna6300@gmail.com.
This'll just take a sec. Thanks, Tony. I've sent you an email with a link to book a time with Nathan. Feel free to schedule at your convenience. If you have any other questions, just let me know.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Jarvis. So as you can see, the call went through, the assistant picked up, and it sent the prospect an email with the booking link for them to book a meeting. Also, it was able to collect the information from the prospect about their business, about their need, about their budget, and store that into my CRM in Airtable, which is pretty neat. If you are new to the channel, which you probably are because it's my first video, my name is Nathan and I have been building software solutions for the last 8 years, first as an engineer and then later as a product manager. And currently I'm helping businesses automate their manual operations using AI agent, just like the one that you've just seen. Besides saving time, what's great about this kind of system is that it can be available 24/7 to answer calls even when I'm not available, which can be super valuable when you have clients from different time zones like I do. Also, there are many different ways that I can improve on a system like this. For example, I can implement a live booking mechanism that will ask the prospect for their availability and then book the call right into their calendar. I can also make an outbound version of this agent and let it call my leads and qualify them while I sleep. But that's for another video. Now let's get back to how I built this one. Here are the tools that we will use to build this voice agent. First of all, we have Vapi, which is a platform that allows us to define various different aspects of the voice agent, such as how it sounds, any role or guidelines or instructions that we want it to have, and also any specific actions that we want it to be able to do. Second of all, we have Make, which is a low-code platform for workflow automation, and we will use Make to define the specific functions that the agent will be able to do. In this case, sending emails and writing a database record into Airtable. And finally, we have Airtable, which is a no-code database builder, and we will use it for our CRM. Alright, so now that you guys have seen the demo, let's dive into details and see how this works under the hood. So here I have created a quick flow diagram to explain step by step how the system works. And the first step, the trigger of the workflow, is when a prospect would call into a phone number. So once the prospect calls in, the first thing that the assistant would do is to greet them and to explain to them my services, what my services are, and what their benefits are. So in my case, it would be voice agents and chatbots. And after explaining a little bit about my services, it would ask the prospect about their business. So it would ask the prospect what line of business they're in, what kind of customer they serve, and then ask them about the kinds of operations that are taking them a lot of time that they would like to automate. And then it would ask them about their budget, their willingness to pay for the service that I offer. And after all the questions, it would ask whether they would like to book a call, in this case with me, to discuss the project in more details. And in your case, depending on your team, it can be you or it can be a sales representative. If they agree, then the Vapi assistant would in turn trigger the scenario that I have set up in Meg.com. And so in this particular assistant, there are two scenarios that I set up in Meg that helps the assistant to do two things. The first thing is that the assistant would send out an email to the prospect with a booking link in it so that they can go into my calendar and book a time for us to discuss the project. And then the second thing that it would do is that it would create a new record in my Airtable database, my CRM. And what that record would entail is all of the information that the assistant was able to collect from the prospect during the call. So their business name, the kind of business that they're in, the kind of operations that they would like to automate, their budget, their email address obviously, and so on. The powerful thing about this is that a lot of the heavy lifting has already been done in Vapi with the system prompt, because with the right system prompt and the right examples, the Vapi assistant can detect the right intention from the prospect. They can understand what kind of information the prospect is providing and then map that accordingly to the MEC scenarios and provide the MEC scenarios with the exact kind of information that the scenarios need in order to do the actions that I wanted to do. In this case, sending the email to the right email address, to the right person using their name, and to persist the right information in the Airtable database. And that's basically the end of the flow. So now let's jump into Vapi. Alright, so we are in Vapi now, and if you are not already familiar with the platform, I would highly recommend you check out the tutorial that I left for you in the description of this video. For this video, I will not go into too much details about Vapi as well as the functionalities that it has. I will only focus on the specific parts that is most relevant to this voice agent. So first, let's talk about the system prompt. This is where we specify to the assistant its role as well as any other characteristics or behaviors that we want it to have, as well as any actions that we want it to carry out. And so a typical system prompt structure that I usually like to use, not only for voice agent but also for chatbot and other systems, is this. So first section is the role. This is where we tell the assistant basically what role it serves. Next we have context. We use this section to give the assistant any extra information that we think would be useful for it to carry out its role to the best of its ability. Next we have task. This is where we specify in details the kind of task and actions that we want the assistant to carry out. And so in this case, for example, I specify in a lot of details the steps that the assistant should go through whenever it talks to a prospect. So I tell the assistant to greet them and ask for their name, and then explain our offerings to the prospect. Here is also where we specify any functions that we want the assistant to run. So for example, in this case, After the assistant has talked to the prospect for a while and asked the prospect to whether they want to book an appointment to discuss in more details, and they agree, the assistant would then ask the prospect for their company name and their email address. After the assistant gets this information, we'll tell the assistant to run the send email function to send the booking link to the prospect, and also run the store in CRM function to record the information about the lead that we have collected from the previous step. And I even specify the specific information that the agent should collect from the lead and send it as inputs to the function. And we will go through these functions in more details later. Now, depending on the specific use case that we are asking the assistant to do, we might give it an example script like I do here. And I find the example script to be especially useful in the cases where we expect the conversation to be more structured, to be more scripted, such as lead qualification, or in this case, collecting information and carry out a very specific set of actions. Providing an example script also helps provide the assistant with more guidelines about the style and the tone of conversation that it should try to emulate. So here I basically specify a typical interaction of a typical prospect and play out that conversation for the assistant to use as an example. Next, we can also specify any other specific instructions or notes that we want the assistant to abide by, basically. For example, things like, be professional, friendly, and concise in your responses, or use a caller's name throughout the conversation to create a personal connection. Things like that we can put on this section. Also, throughout testing, I would usually notice other issues or imperfections here and there that I would want to avoid, and so I would also note down those specific instructions for the assistant as well. So for example, things like if the prospect talks about something unrelated to the task at hand, then we would tell the assistant to try to steer the conversation back on track. Or things like if they couldn't hear the information that the prospect has given clearly, typically names and emails, then confirm the information before accepting it as the truth, and they can even spell it out, spell it back to the prospect if necessary to confirm and get the information as accurately as possible. And I will also put the system prompt that I'm using here in the description of the video for you guys to use as reference. Next, let's talk about a very important aspect of the voice agent, which are the tools that it can use. So here you can see that I'm specifying two tools that this voice agent has at its disposal. First of all is the send email function, and second is the store CRM function. And here in the system prompt, I'm specifying to the agent when it should call these tools. But where do these tools get defined? It can be found in here in Vapi. So if we go to the tools section, we would see the different tools that I have created for this voice agent, as well as a few other ones that I'm working on. So first of all, we have the send email tool. And basically in this section, I can describe what the tool does, as well as any parameters or any inputs that the tool would expect, the tool would need, which in this case would be name, which is the name of the lead or prospect that the agent is talking to, and the email, which is the email address. And we will go through how each of these parameters get used in the make scenario later on. The second tool that we will need for this voice agent is the store in CRM tool. And as described, the tool is used to store the prospect's information in the conversation to our CRM in Airtable. Similarly, in the properties section, we would also define the different parameters or inputs that this tool would expect in order for the voice agent to call it. And I will show later on in the make scenario how these different properties get used in make as well as in Airtable. So in order for the tools that we have defined to be used in our voice agent, we would need to do two things. So first of all, in the function section of the assistant, we would need to choose which tools the assistant should be able to have access to. In this case, it would be send email and store in CRM. And the second thing that we would need to do, which you guys have already seen when I go through the system prompt, is to specify in the script when the tool should be called. And so in this case, when the prospect had already expressed an interest to book a call, then I tell the assistant to run these functions. Simple as that. And so two things that we would need to do to use the tools. I'd be wondering what exactly happens when these tools get called in a real conversation, right? After we have defined everything. And so that is where Make will come in. So first of all, I will walk through how Vapi gets integrated with Make. If we go back to Vapi, to the tools section, besides everything that we have defined for the tools such as name and description and properties, one more thing that we also define when we create the tool is a server URL. So basically what this is an unique identification for Vapi to know which external function it would need to call in order to execute this tool. So this is where the URL comes from. So in Make, we basically set up a webhook, which is basically a listener for events. As you can see, it's the same URL as the one that we saw earlier in Vapi. And Make and Vapi will use this URL as a common denominator in order to communicate back and forth. And so basically when the tool gets triggered in a Vapi call, Make will receive this signal, this event, in order to go through with the rest of the workflow execution. And so in this case, the workflow execution is simply to send an email. And so in this case, the action that happens in this Make scenario is a very simple one. Basically, send an email to this email address, which comes directly from Vapi, as well as the name of the person that we are sending the email to. So if we recall in the tool that we defined, the send email tool that we defined in Vapi, we have two properties, right? Name and email. And in Make.com, those are the exact properties that we are using to send the email. And the store CRM function will be triggered the same way as well. So we can see the Make scenario here. Same case, the URL, the server URL, is what Vapi and Make will use to recognize that this function is being triggered, as well as which information Vapi should send over to this Make workflow. As you can see, this is the same URL when we define the store in CRM tool. So what exactly happens when this tool gets called? So there are two scenarios that can happen. The first scenario is when the prospect agrees to for an email to be sent to them in order to book an appointment. So in that case, we will save a new record with the prospect information that the voice agent has collected during the conversation into the Airtable database. So here you can see the Airtable database that I have set up with the following information, and these are also the exact information that I have specified in the Vapi tool that I created. So here are the same properties that I have defined, that I have told the agent that these are the information that I need from the prospect, and in the conversation between you and the prospect, you would need to extract this information for me. And so when the tool gets triggered during a conversation, what Make does is that it will connect the properties between Vapi. So here are the Vapi's property that Make is receiving, and what it's doing here is that it's mapping these properties one by one to the Airtable database that I showed earlier. So for example, the business name field in the Airtable database should be matched to the business underscore name from Vapi, because they refer to the same information. And that is how Make knows which information it receives from Vapi should go into which column in the Airtable database. In the second scenario here, when the prospect does not want to receive an email, we basically do the same thing. The only minor difference here is the value that we will put in the record for the status. So in this scenario where the email is not sent, where the prospect doesn't want to have the meeting, we keep the status as discovery. Whereas in the case the prospect wants to book an appointment and already have an email sent to them, then we will put the value of status as invitation sent. And as you can see in the database, depending on the call, depending on the prospect answer, we would get this different value for the status. So there you have it, a simple and practical system that you can build to automate answering initial phone calls from prospects. You can also find all the resources that I have mentioned, such as the system prompt and the scenarios, in the video description. If you enjoyed the video, please feel free to drop a like and subscribe. It would mean a lot to me, and it would also help the video to show up to other people's feed who might benefit from it as well. And finally, if you are a business interested in implementing this kind of system, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or book a strategy call with me so we can help future-proof your business with AI. That's it from me today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.